Let's talk about symbols and languages. What are languages? Languages are just really complex systems of symbols. Okay? So, we'll start with this one, with winking. You ever had somebody wink at you before? Right? What does it mean when somebody winks at you?
Like they're like trying to plan something.
They like you or they're trying to plan something? That's two different things. Well, why is there two different things? How do you know the difference? That could be a confusing situation, right? If they're actually trying to like you, communicate that they like you, and then you think that they're doing something else. Brandon?
I feel like nowadays it's kind of like a joke. It's kind of weird to wink at someone.
Okay, so it's a violation of a social norm if you wink at somebody today?
I mean, it's just people don't really do it much unless they're joking around.
Okay, maybe we should do that more, see what happens, you know, do this for the rest of the day, right? Start winking at people and see what kind of reactions we get for the rest of the day, right? That would be an interesting test. The idea is, you know, in this particular case, what's going on? What's being communicated here?
You think somebody's cute?
You think so? In that one? Is that what you're getting from that one? Okay, so what about here? So he's that's the attractiveness. He likes somebody.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? All right. What about this one right here? With Michael Scott.
Like agreeing with someone.
He's just weird.
He's agreeing with somebody. All right. What about this one right here?
He's trying to. He likes someone and he's trying to wink, but.
You think so?
He's blinking with his right eye.
In this one and this one I think are very similar. It's kind of like the over obvious, you know, the wink is, hey, you understand what I'm thinking, we're on the same page, you know, I'm not actually telling you what's going to happen, but you know, we're kind of being sneaky behind the scenes kind of thing, right? We're talking about somebody behind their back, right? And we're on the same page, right? Trying to communicate that type of mindset. You can see the overemphasis here, right? So this one is liking, this one's a, you know, you're all right kind of person, and this one's we know what's going on. So what are we trying to say here with winking specifically? You know, that particular symbol is really contingent upon the context in which it is given, right? It's contingent upon the context in which it is given. So today, for the rest of the day, whenever you're going around and you're winking at people, you know, you're going to do it out of context and not a particular context, and you just get to see what everybody, how they react to you. Okay, and then we'll come back and share on Monday. Okay. Other symbols. What's this one mean? All right, you're okay. Right, you're okay. Everything's going to be all right. Okay. Actually, I think this in France, it's either France or Australia, but you don't do this. You don't go around and do this. It means what? You know what it means?
Middle finger.
It does. Yeah, it means the middle finger. Easy way to remember that is they're putting up a 0. It means you're worth 0. It's like you're worth nothing. Okay, so it's really it's defamation. It's, you know, it's a hurtful type of a symbol, okay? So again, the meaning of the symbol is contingent upon the culture in which you live. In our culture, that's fine. In I think it's France, yeah, it's not so good, okay? What about this? What's this mean?
Isn't that like unity?
Unity, okay. What is it? Black Lives Matter. Okay, so that would be like the equivalent.
Was it Black Power?
It was Black Power in this cultural context, okay? This is like 1960s, 70s, all right? This is like Malcolm X type of mentality, yes?
Didn't he get his medal taken away?
I think he did, yeah. Yeah, I think I do remember that happening, okay? And so, in a sense, it was considered to be deviant, so you can see the consequences of that. But for us, what did you say, Jake? You said unity, right? So in our context, our cultural context today, when we see something like that, we don't think of Black Power so much as what they used to think of Black Power with the cultural context of 1960s, 1970s, right? So the meaning of that symbol has changed. It's varied, okay? This right here, what's this? Peace, right? That used to be the big thing when I was growing up. If you're in this awkward situation where you're getting a picture taken of it, everybody throw out the peace sign or something like that, right? As if you're really cool. So this means peace, and what does this mean? Well, what does it mean?
What did it used to mean?
In our cultural context, it means hate, right? And prejudice. It's representative of like the Holocaust, Hitler, right? But prior to it, Jason, what did it mean?
I can't remember. All I know is the Nazis like inverted it or something.
Yeah, prior to it, it actually meant this. It actually meant some type of peaceful type of approach. That's what the symbol represented prior to the Nazis taking over and using it as their symbol of representation. Okay.
And Servant talked about a blanket that she had that had swastikas all over it
Uh-huh.
from her grandma, or her great grandma, and she can't sell it now because now it's
Right. The whole meaning of the symbol has changed drastically. Okay. So, it gives us another example of showing how symbols and the meanings associated with those symbols can vary not only from culture to culture, but also context to context, meaning in aspects of time. Okay. What about this one? The thumbs up means,
good.
hey, you're doing well, right? You're good job, right? I believe this is either Australia or France. Again, I get them mixed up. But this, you don't do this either, because it's kind of like the middle finger again in that context. Okay, you got to be really careful if you go to other places and you use some of the cultural norms that we have, and then use it in different places. Sometimes they have different meanings. Okay, what's wrong with this guy? This guy's doing something that is really looked down upon in certain cultural contexts. Yeah, he's doing something. It's not the eating.
The way
necessarily.
he is, I don't know. His face?
His face? No, good try. Good try. I mean, some people say that he's
The way
not.
he
Food on his top.
Yeah, what's on his?
Food on his tie. No, good try.
What's on his face?
What is
I
it?
feel like the picture was like.
Eating with his hands, you're getting closer.
Eating with his left hand?
He's eating with his left hand.
Wait, that's wrong.
Eating with his left hand is definitely looked down upon, especially in the Middle East. You get to Southeast Asian cultures sometimes as well, and certain other locations around the world. You don't eat with the left hand, especially in North Africa and in the Middle East. You don't eat with your left hand. Okay? And you know why you don't eat with your left hand? Jason?
No,
You don't know why? You just know. Don't eat with your left hand. Ms. Underwood?
Is it because your left hand is considered like unclean?
It is considered unclean, and there's a reason why it's considered unclean. It's used for hygiene purposes in the restroom, right? So restroom facilities are a little bit different in a lot of these locations like North Africa and the Middle East. And sometimes what we think of as a restroom, we actually do a study on restrooms a cross-cultural study of restrooms to finish up the spring semester in Gulf cultures. It's kind of an interesting, eye-opening experience. But not all restrooms are the same as what we have here in the United States. And so sometimes you have to use, there's cultural norms, different methods by which you clean yourself, and one is using your left hand, okay? So the assumption is, don't eat with your left hand, alright? Don't touch anybody with your left hand, okay? I've finished up, at the end of the ball game, what's the social norm? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to go do what? Shake hands, alright? I've had some freshman games, or fresh soft games, where these guys, they don't do it the right way, when they go through the line, and they end up getting on the wrong side. And they go through on the left side, and they give everybody a left-hand high five or something like that, or a left-hand handshake. And doing that is the most awkward thing, right? I refuse to do that. I won't go through the line if it's left hand. I'll stand in the back and I'll wait until everybody's finished, right? And I'll shake everybody's right hand. I won't touch anybody's left hand, okay? That way. You just don't do that, okay? What we're trying to get at is that symbols, each of them carries specific meanings. But again, these meanings, they may vary from culture to culture. Now, are you going to have some aspects of continuity? You may have some symbols that are the same here and the same in Western Europe. They may be the same in Africa and Asia. But there's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't have any sense of continuity. They may not have a meaning. They may not understand, first off, what the symbol represents. Or, what's even worse, is they have a totally different meaning for that particular symbol in their context. And so when you use it, you think you're communicating one thing when actually you're communicating something completely different. Okay? And that's when you're going to get closer to experiencing culture shock. Okay? So culture shock is a two-way process, like we said, with our bell work. With the guy that's doing the research on the Yanomamo, he's experiencing culture shock because he doesn't understand the symbols, the meanings of those symbols in the Amazonian rainforest. Never experienced anything like that in his life. Or you can actually inflict culture shock on other people. Okay? You can be the one that's administering it. An example of this would be like going into a restaurant in India and ordering like a cheeseburger or a hamburger or anything associated with beef, right? Because in that particular cultural context, it's understood that beef is not consumed because of their religious practices associated with Hinduism, right? The cow is seen as being more of a holy type of symbol. So you can appall somebody, right? And make somebody feel uncomfortable by asking for something or actually doing something in front of them, right? Inflicting cultural shock, okay? You guys ever seen Third Rock from the Sun before? No? It's an old TV sitcom from the 1990s. And the way it's put together is they are aliens from someplace beyond Earth, and they have set down in human form on this planet in the United States. And so they're trying to pick up on all the cultural norms of what we have here. And so this short clip here gives us a little bit of understanding of what culture shock looked like, okay?
I can't believe how much we have to go through to get a license.
Then why are we here?
Because I want one. If I have to be the woman, I'm not about to be stuck at home.
Stay behind orange line. That's why nobody ever gets to the window.
Hey, let's pull up the slack here.
Oh, there must be some sort of flesh-melting force field at the orange line. I'm sorry.
You know, cars must have some huge power we haven't discovered yet. Look at this, the lines, the waiting, the testing.
Can you imagine what you must have to go through to get a gun?
Next! What is it they don't get? That woman says next. The first person goes to the window. The second person moves to the orange line, becoming first. The third person becomes second, and the rest of us pull up the slack! There are just too many gaps in this line. We should each only be a single person thickness apart.
Good point. I think everyone should hear it.
You think so? Okay, people, listen up and nobody gets hurt!
Alright, so you can see that they don't understand the norms and the symbols of our particular cultural context associated with standing in the line, and that definitely creates a predicament in their particular case. Right? We already mentioned that cultural symbols can change over time. Gave you a couple examples like the swastika beforehand. Another example would be like jeans. Jeans in the American culture used to symbolize very low income type of lifestyle. Poverty is what it used to reflect, right? So if you were seen wearing jeans, then people could assume that that's what social class you were in. You were in the bottom social class. Today, when we think of jeans, do we think of that? We think, man, they're, got a tough life, right? No, because we know jeans can be for pretty much anybody. And then if you really think about the price of jeans, how much jeans cost today? You can get some pretty expensive jeans, right? Jeans are more expensive than my dress pants that I wear, right? So the cultural symbol associated with them has changed quite a bit. So going away from specific symbols and behaviors, think about language for a little bit. Language is the key to the world of culture. If you really think about language, what it really is just one complex system of symbols, right? Complex system of symbols. So it's the key to the world of culture. Language differs from culture to culture, and give you some specifics. Some cultures, whenever they write, they have their own written language. Sometimes they, like us, they go left to right. Some cultures go right to left, what we would consider backwards, right? Some cultures go top to bottom. And whenever you get exposed to one of those other cultural systems that have different norms with their writing, that's when we get a little bit confused, especially if they're going right to left or top to bottom. The three most widely spoken languages in the world today are Chinese, Spanish, and English. However, this is the main point here. There are over 6,500 spoken languages in the world today. 6,500 spoken languages. Okay, so if we think about this idea of culture, and one language is kind of reflective of one culture, we'd have to say that there's over 6,500 different types of culture out there in the world today as well. Everybody good there? If we think about the number of languages, we could also assume that there are 6,500 types of culture out there as well. So imagine the variations of symbols and norms associated with them, meanings associated with those symbols.
There's spoken languages.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean there's languages that aren't spoken?
Well, you could have sign language as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that type of language, and there would be other types of ways of communication, Morse code, and things like that wouldn't necessarily be verbalized. Language is the major means of cultural transmission. So how do we communicate our cultural norms from generation to generation? Well, we do it through the means of language. Okay. We've hit on the idea of the written word quite a bit this past week with our study on guns, germs, and steel and global cultures. And we think about how the written word creates an exponential advantage over those ancient civilizations, especially the Amerindians, that did not have the written word. One last thing that I want you to consider before we finish up, when we talk about symbols and languages, is this concept called the Sapir-Whorf thesis. The Sapir-Whorf thesis. This is a good test question. Here we're going to do a little activity. I haven't done it for a while, but I'm pretty sure it does a pretty good job of making an application with the Sapir-Whorf thesis. Does language shape our reality? Meaning, is our perception of the world around us, is it contingent upon the language in which we speak? Is it contingent upon the language in which we speak? Meaning that if I spoke Spanish, would I perceive the world a little bit differently than when I perceive it as I speak English? Or if I spoke Mandarin or some other version of Chinese or whatever else it may be, right? Is that a possibility? And according to this thesis, the answer is yes, okay? I'm not sure if I shared this with you, but I believe as my fall classes, I came across an article about the Sapir-Whorf thesis, maybe a Times Magazine article. And there's this researcher, I think he's from Europe, and what he's doing is he's collecting all these words that certain languages have for concepts that no other language has. They don't have words that reflect these certain concepts. So in that particular approach, then obviously, there's going to be having an effect on the way that we perceive the world. If there's not even a word in the English language that describes a particular behavior or a concept as a whole, if we don't have it available to us, then we can't really even experience it, right? That way, okay? I'm also always reminded of, anybody know what this movie comes from, or this is from? There's a movie called Spanglish, where this guy has this hired servant, and she speaks Hispanic, or she speaks Spanish, and he has to learn how to speak Spanish as well, and the whole thing. So it just reminds me of the idea that our cultural perceptions are really contingent upon the language in which we speak, okay? Let's try something a little bit different. Go to the classroom website. And this is about colors, but I think it applies. I've got it linked underneath the Sapphire Wharf stuff, so at one point in time, at least I thought it was applicable here. So we're on the culture. And the last thing, the second to last thing, down at the bottom says Sapphire Wharf thesis, or Sapphire Wharf. Click on that, it's going to take us to this. Online Research Consortium Perceiving Colors, okay? So you can fill this out. I wouldn't fill it out accurately, I never do. Never like giving out my real stuff, okay? And then you're gonna take about 3 minutes to complete this particular activity. Sound good? And we'll see what the results are.
Well, I've taken it online. You should know. Not so.
She should. Because I remember it being weird purple and it doesn't.
Oh, I thought it was really cute.
I thought the first two colors were exactly the same.
No.
The first one I was like, huh.
It says it right here.
And then the second one I was like, gray light.
You missed 8 too?
Wait, which one's the second one?
How are you?
Who else missed 8?
I did. That's great to you?
Is that so?
No.
Guys,
Oh.
we're retest
I don't,
How do you?
that one I said. My second one.
Oh, that one is
So good.
What
We
that
never
one?
even saw it.
What is that?
Purple?
Probably no, yeah, these are like all the same.
I know.
Wait, I don't know what it's like. I guess I could